Welcome to the Culture Stoke podcast, where happier people lead to better results.
Welcome to the Culture Stoke Post-it Sessions. This is our lightning round. I'm your host, Richard. I am joined by the co-founders of Culture Stoke, Mr. Marty Imes and Mr. Wes Love, here in the studio.
At least you got the name right this time.
You know what? I didn't get it wrong. It just took me a minute last time.
Right.
I did call you John, though, so, you know, we'll see what it is. So, we finally have gotten to our Bull of Destiny. That's not what we're naming it. We haven't
Please
said
don't
it.
call
It's
it
not
that
that.
ever
It's
again.
the,
Don't ever
it's
call
the,
that again.
The inquiries of...
Stop.
This is where we answer the questions that you have asked and also that we've just heard. Lots of different things. And so I'm literally, here's the rules. Are we good? You guys good with the rules? Can I throw
Let's hear 'em.
Yeah,
Okay.
send it.
I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull one out and I'm going to say the question or the phrase and you guys get to the salient, sticky point as fast as possible. Hold them to it, people. So if you on the comments.
That was your job.
You know, no. It is. Actually, this is true. Dang it.
All right.
Well, help me.
This is gonna challenge my ability to not blabber
be
on.
loquacious.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Okay, and no one, and whoever has the first thought first. There's no politeness in this round. It's ruthless, angry mob style answer.
You do know who you have in the room, right?
All right, here we go. Ooh, okay, I already know. Okay, so core values. How do you establish good core values in your organization?
How to establish good core values in your organization. Look at them.
Done. Episode over.
Done. No. The first thing that you need to do is actually look for them.
Yeah.
One,
Find them.
discover them. More often than not, they're probably in your organization already. One of the quickest ways to do that is to think of who are your rockstar team members and what are the behaviors, attributes, abilities, attitudes that make them such incredible individuals. Yeah. So you can very much use the culture model to think about, in our perfect world, how do we want to treat each other? How do we want to treat others? How do we want to view and solve problems? How do we want to communicate? And how do we want to grow collectively as an organization?
That's great. Yeah.
So look around, observe, reflect, consider, and just really consider what would you love your organization to be known for.
Yep. Look for them and say them.
Yeah, most organizations have them, but being able to articulate them would be step one. It's way too often that we'll go into a place and we're like, we know we have them. They're somewhere, but if you can't rattle them off,
right,
you don't know them. The other thing I would say is look at their impact and do they actually mean something to you? You know, if you have a value on there that why would you even hire somebody that wouldn't embody this?
Right.
Is that a value at all, or is that just table stakes? So get it.
Is that what?
Table stakes? Like,
what do you mean by that?
So having honesty as a value.
Okay.
Right. Would you hire somebody who is inherently dishonest, or has dishonesty been a problem? Mm-hmm. You know, I would say go to integrity. You want people with integrity. Honesty is an outcome.
I see.
So being very clear about what we're actually looking for.
Yeah.
And creating that as a value. And if it's fluff, get the fluff out of there.
I think that's a third time. And I love it. You should try to find every episode to get in there.
I'm going to try.
You should. I love it. That was great. Okay. So
last point around values is that your values should also outlast your leader.
The leader. Okay.
If there's anything that's going to be consistent or quote unquote forever within your organization, it should be your values.
I love
your
it.
purpose might change with the leader who's there, same with your vision, but your purpose should support your values.
Okay.
Or your values also support your purpose. But your values are your bedrock. Those are the things that should never ever change.
Are those our values intrinsically connected to mission, or is that a totally different thing?
No, values are they're best friends. They're neighbors who live next door to one another. They go over to
share beer together.
Share beer, knock on the door if you need an extra cup of sugar, whatever it looks like.
Okay. Yeah.
But they are not just homies. They are
they're best homies.
They're best homies.
They're BFFs.
They're BFHs.
H's.
Yeah.
Best freaking homies.
Best freaking Yeah. Okay.
So I
love it.
lost your question.
No, I just said our values and mission intrinsically connected. So
100% linked.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
I mean, if there is an issue, that's different. So to the sustainability piece, you would any leader you're bringing in, you would say these are our values. Do they line up with you? Unless you're not getting the outcomes that you want and they're not driving the behaviors that you want, and you just because if you created them in a vacuum, or if you just as a matter of compliance, you didn't put any thought into them, you just like went to Chat GPT and was like, give me 5 values. Like then they'll probably need to change, right? If they're not. So there is that, but it should tie to how people want to show up and what they're all about.
It's great. I love it. All right. I felt good. You guys feel good about that?
I feel good about it.
That was good.
I feel good about it.
Really good about it. I'm gonna go deep in here. Here we go. Oh, that one's stuck. You're stuck. I can't. Okay. Oh, hello.
Uh-oh.
How can you best deal with conflict as a leader in your workplace?
Oof.
Rough.
Lean into it.
Lean into it.
Don't ignore it. Yeah.
Run to it.
Run to it.
If you see it, address it.
Do
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Hard work and conflict do not get better with age.
Okay.
So just if there is conflict in there, don't just let it go on its own.
Yeah.
Because that will breed a lot of resentment. It will breed a lot. Like it becomes bigger as time goes on. So it gets worse with age. Right. Yeah. And so if you notice that there's conflict, now differentiating between healthy and unhealthy conflict, okay, because healthy conflict will provide better outcomes. And so good litmus test for a healthy and unhealthy conflict is going to be either if it's around the idea, if it's around the goal, or if it's around the tactical part of it, it's probably healthy. You want to manage it. Manage that conflict, make sure that it doesn't move to the unhealthy, which is if it's around the individual or the team,
right?
Like, oh, well, you only want that because that's unhealthy. And that's where you want to say, hey, that's not what we're doing. Let's get focused back on the goal. But really, I think the number one thing with conflict is you want to lean into it and figure it out. Don't just ignore it.
Lean into it. I love, something I kind of heard you say in that kind of like toxic and not toxic, but like almost it's like separating
unhealthy.
Unhealthy, like separating who from what they do almost in that. It's like, hey, this is just about this thing, we need our buzzer.
So, just healthy, you're two people looking at the outside situation or the goal. Unhealthy, the goal is outside and you're focused on each other.
Yeah. I love that. Here, I'm going to go a little further back.
Okay, there it is.
Healthy, looking at the problem. Unhealthy, looking at each other.
Yep.
Boom.
Likely. Now, again, 80-20, that's a good litmus test, good first pass.
Well, and here's a great question. What happens when it is like, okay, as a leader, because this is interpersonal, we're all relational. Yeah. What about when this is happening? Because that's its own conflict. Now, how does a leader bring it back? Because these things now actually become that thing. Mm-hmm. How do they deal with that?
Oh, you just said it.
Okay.
What that is.
I'm smart.
Yeah, is actually drawing the line, disrupting this, and be like, hey, you know what?
Okay.
It sounds like we're really we're not necessarily focusing on the issue at large.
Okay.
Or the issue at hand. Mm-hmm. I know we have some tension here, which let's work on that in a moment. But hey, let's set our sights over here on this issue.
Yeah.
Once we can figure out this issue, now we have to repair our relationship.
If you want to play chess with this though a little bit, because there is an opportunity if your team is not skilled in resolving their own conflict, there can be the talk where it's like, hey, Marty, Richard, I'm not blind. I saw what was going down between you two. I'm going to give you two options here. Okay, either you two can go and sort this out to where you can move forward, or we're all three going to have a sit down and talk. Okay. What do you want? And so do I need to, as a leader, to mediate because these two are getting ready to Thunderdome it out and two's going in and one's coming out? Or do I want to give my team the ability and how we view and solve problems? Like, hey, I want you two to sort this out together and then come back and talk to me. And so that's really when there's a little bit of kind of 4D chess there, with depending on the situation and the circumstance.
Right.
Yeah. But in any case, nip it in the bud.
Yeah. Get run to it, lean into it, make it a priority. I guess, and I want to look back at this real quick because I'm just in my own experience. I found that when this occurs, usually it's like it's not some
not
sort of
the first
businessy
time.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also not the first time. Like it's seldom is like the problem is actually the fact that it's this.
Nope.
Like John just doesn't like Sue.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does the leader do? Because the problem still is that there is no problem here. It's just there. What do they do with that?
That's where, to the point of where kind of
Yeah.
there's two choices.
Okay.
There's two choices, and you can either. This comes into more of a performance managing kind of
That's okay.
values and results
Yeah.
type thing.
Go there.
But draw something else
Yeah,
out really
here we
quick.
go.
Yeah.
But
Send
Wes,
it.
You can speak into
Speak into it.
I think this is where you can lean into. Again, we've mentioned it before. You don't have to care. You don't have to like
There
somebody
we
to
go.
care about them,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's that piece of it. But that's a good time for the leader to kind of come in and say, "Look, I understand, Marty, Richard, that you all are not going to be buds and you're
Right.
not going to hang out, but we still got to get work done,
Yeah.
and we still have to accomplish our goals together, and we can only do that together."
Yeah.
And so, what are the things that we need to put in place for you two in order to where? Look, I'm not asking you to
Like each other.
get a huge bag of potato chips and some bongo drums and be buddies. But I do need you to be able to coexist and
Yeah.
work well together. So, what are the things that we need to do in order to make that happen?
Yeah.
So really leaning into like the relational side of it, that look, we're a team and
Yeah.
you're going to have to work together.
Yeah.
Make the choices that are going to make this work pleasant for both of you.
Right.
The work's going to be hard enough. We don't have to make it harder by being jerks to each other.
Well, and so I mean, I'm wondering as a leader though in that situation, does that necessitate intervention? Like when you see,
Depends. It's one of the worst words
Always
in language.
depends.
Depends. Because
if you had to lean towards one or the other though,
I'm always
you're
going to
leaning.
default to getting involved. If because we are so conflict avoidant as a society,
100%, especially you.
I'm going to lean into getting involved, but I'm always going to give them the option.
Okay.
Like here are the two
back to the-
two roads.
Yeah.
Here's my expectations for you. You either can go suss this out yourself and then you can come back and let me know what you figured out,
yeah.
or we're going to figure it out together.
Does the leader provide specific ways and like when they come back? Here's because I'm just imagining those two people. We now go have that conversation. What do they come back with the leader? We're good. Like,
No.
what are they saying to
No,
them? You know?
absolutely not.
What is the leader expecting of them to come back with?
How are you going to work well together? What are your safe words? What are your right? Like what are
okay? No,
what are
yeah,
you
that's what I'm
gonna
trying to
do?
get to.
Moving forward, how do we move on from here?
Yeah,
Can
totally.
even the leader's opportunity into potentially, if you do need to have to get into mediate, is 3 simple questions for your
Ooh,
people.
Here we go.
It's your past, your present, your future. Like, what happened in the past to create conflict?
Yep.
And this is actually an opportunity for people to do a bit of an inventory and reflect.
Yep.
It's like, this particular instance caused this particular situation, or I have this sense of resentment for one
Whatever it
reason
is,
or
yeah.
another.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, here's the present conflict that we're dealing with. It's maybe we're on the same team working towards this goal, but we have different ways of getting there.
Right.
Okay, can we acknowledge that there's differences that exist? And if that's the case, can we agree and commit, or disagree and commit? Or are we going to need to look at shifting roles or responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera? And so
Right.
the main goal is just hey, this is kind of what we dealt with in the past that most likely has been conflict that came up but was unaddressed. And so it's
Right.
given time to fester. That is now manifesting within this present based upon this kind of pinch that has occurred. And so this is where the leader, if you need to go and mediate, is kind of, okay, let's reflect a little bit of where we were,
Yeah.
know where we are, and be like, how the heck are we going to agree to move forward? What
Yeah.
are our quote-unquote rules of engagement? Because if we don't, not only is this conflict going to be exacerbated, but this is wasting time, resources, money, energy, effort, etc., sanity, which, if left to different devices, we would be in a much better place.
Yeah, totally,
For sure.
What? So, I mean, just again, another thought, additional thought that came up. A question out of that is because we talk exclusively, team member to team member. What about team member to leader? Like, what if
Ooh,
someo's pissed
such a
at the
good-
leader?
Yeah.
and
Or vice versa.
or
Yeah.
vice versa. What if how as a leader, knowing that we say, hey, make a psychologically safe place. Don't create this transactional relationship. How does a leader approach that? that conflict with someone on their team member.
I think
Or someone on that team.
first I will start with
Yeah.
the same way, because people is people.
Naturally.
So just understand. But there are some things for the
There's
leader.
nuance.
There's some things for the leader to consider, is that there's going to be some natural deference due to hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so people are going to be very fearful
Yeah.
about bringing that up, particularly if you've created that environment that people are fearful,
Or
to
helped
bring
enable
things up.
that environment.
Yeah, if you've done some
Not
things
necessarily
yeah.
as full ownership on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May have
Yeah.
Contributed.
100%. So I think acknowledging that there's some deference, and so if you're going to have the
Saying
conversation, say, hey, look, I understand this is odd, okay,
Yeah.
but I want to work well with you, and I know you want to work well with me. How do we figure this out? Stripes at the door.
Okay.
We're going to figure. Let's get the hierarchy out of this, because usually the conflict, if it's around the hierarchy, I think it was like Simon Sinek said, like, nobody cares that their boss gets paid more until they've proved that they don't deserve it. So it's usually not about the work. It's the interpersonal thing.
Yeah.
And so the
Almost
hierarchy
always.
should not matter at that point.
Yeah.
Now we're just two people that need to figure out how do we get along. And so it takes away the complexity of it.
Yeah.
Like now we've removed the veneer of, oh, well, now you're my boss, so I've got to treat you differently, and you've got to treat me differently. It's like, no, interpersonal conflict is interpersonal conflict. You'd probably have the same conflict if that person was your neighbor.
Yeah.
So just acknowledging that in and of itself, I think, is a great place to start.
That's really good.
And very much even to that point of looking at the past and the present and realize those are dead ends. We can't choose that.
Nope.
But the opportunity in front of us
What
is
are we doing now?
unlimited.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so just to that degree, there needs to be a level of acceptance that, like, you know what, that did really suck. I didn't show up as my best self, and I'm sorry that happened or what have you, and accept that it did happen.
Do you think that as a leader, that should be I suppose, as if you're setting the pace of like vulnerability, honesty, like owning that from the get-go, like giving them an opportunity to speak in the past and then actually owning parts that you feel are worthy of being owned? Or I don't know, I'm just trying to understand, how a leader could really set the tone to open up that, relational lane to allow, because a lot of people will not speak candidly to their leader, even in a good, healthy culture where they say it and they know the leader would want it. Like they're still going to have that inherent, like, but my paycheck, like, should I, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's really the leader's opportunity to be able to create the environment to say, hey, I know this could feel really uncomfortable for a number of reasons, or very much speak into those reasons. Like if the elephant's in the room, put a saddle on it and ride it, give it a name. And to the degree, even say,
Love that.
This is something, as we reflect on, the past is in the past. I can't change the past, but what I can very much do is I can change and influence how things are done moving forward.
Yeah.
And so if there was an instance back in the day that wasn't great, I take ownership. I acknowledge it. I take my own. I acknowledge my responsibility and role in this and creating this experience. And from here on, I want to be more cognizant and aware of how I do things differently moving forward. Because then that demonstrates not only that, hey, I'm human, but I'm learning as well.
Yeah.
And that I don't necessarily have all the right answers. I'm going to do things. I'm going to screw up to the point I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Just own it. Own it if you need to.
It.
Yeah.
Well,
Own it.
I mean, what's the old adage? It takes two to tango, right? So
100%.
if you have done things that have contributed to this as a leader, just own that.
Yeah.
And just be real about the fact, hey, I did not do, or I showed up in this way. There is a lot of free, and I would venture to say that there's probably a lot more responsibility on the leader's part to model that behavior, because
Naturally.
it does free the other side of it.
That's kind of what I was.
Because if you're like leading with humility and saying, hey, I messed up too.
Yeah.
I'm just a person also.
Yeah.
I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like don't say that, by the way. That is very faux humble. Okay, but if you just own, like, hey, I'm a person too. If you start off with saying, hey, I've done some reflection and here's some of the ways that I showed up that I'm not super proud of and I need to make amends and apologize, it is amazing what kind of stage
Dude.
that sets for a conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's even where like maybe the question in my head is like I almost wonder if that should just be the default start of any of those because no one is going to walk in that room, even if you say keep the stripes
at the door.
Stripes at the door. I know very few, even very healthy leaders where someone will walk into, unless over time they've seen that demonstrated, especially for a new team member, which is where you're going to start seeing that conflict.
I think you could do much worse things not making that your default. If that's just your default way, like there's nothing.
Here's how I can own it, guys.
There's nothing bad that's going to come out of that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Any last thoughts?
It just comes down to ownership to that degree. But
okay. Yeah. Ownership. What do you mean by that though? Like ownership of who did what, who done it, or
the ownership that there's only one thing that we can control. That's ourselves.
Yeah.
And so to the degree that, hey, this is on me, or this is how I showed up.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not proud of it. Or, hey, I felt like I did a really great job here, but maybe you need to meet me a bit further.
Yeah.
And so just being, again, very clear about not only what you expect, but your role in either adhering, supporting, or holding the boundary of that expectation.
Yeah. You guys both said really idioms or something, but you said keep the stripes at the door.
Yeah.
And then you said the elephant. You said if the elephant's in the room, just straps. You said saddle it and write that thing.
Yeah.
I love
give it
that.
a name.
Yeah.
Give it a name. Saddle it and write it.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's a great place. Hey, you know what? We hit it. That was our 2 topics. We're at 24 and a half minutes. You guys have any 30 to 45 second wrap ups before we finish our post-it sessions? Post-it
If you're
sessions?
experiencing conflict, think about how you'd want it solved if you're in the middle of it. How you'd want to solve it with someone that you deeply care about and love. Start from that angle. And then from that, allow somebody the opportunity to process, allow them to respond, and then you respond in kind accordingly.
Yeah, it's great. Humanize it.
Yeah, and I think leaning into the fact of being what you can control. You guys mentioned the one thing you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
So just doing the like stop looking externally and saying like, well, they need to and they need to.
Yeah.
Be able to go home, look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I showed up in every situation the best way that I possibly could. I gave it everything today. And don't base success on the outcomes of others.
Yeah.
And so really, I and this is with conflict, this is with values, this is with inspiration. This is just own your own behavior.
Yeah.
It's the one part of your life that you have basically infinite control over. And it is very freeing to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to worry about Richard. I'm not going to worry about Marty. I'm going to worry about Wes today. And I'm going to figure out what I need to do in order to be the type of person, not only that that I can feel good about, but that my kids can look up to.
That's good. Yeah, and I think as a leader, we sometimes tie our identity to some of these things, and I think I've always heard it said it's such a simple thing, but separate the who from the do. Like, don't make it about who you are. At the end of the day, like you are you, and you can own that infinitely.
Yep.
And so do that, and life will be better.
And also act in accordance to your values.
Yeah.
Because that's where things can very much disintegrate. Is if you are acting in antithetical to the things that you say are important, not just for yourself, but for others to demonstrate. So this is a really great opportunity when conflict arises to lean into and bring those values to life. So that not only do people understand this is how we want to behave when times are good and things are easy, but when things get difficult and we need to repair.
Dude, there it is. I love it. Boop. Boys, that was our post session.
Cheers.
Love it. And as we always say, Culture Stoke, happier people.
Better results.
I don't know why I harmonized there. Like,
better results.
Better results.
This October, we are launching something huge. The Culture Stoke community. Here's what you get when you join. First up, access to our 2 flagship courses and all future flagship courses. You'll also get weekly coaching calls with Wes and Marty. Plus, you'll have exclusive access to Q&A sessions with industry experts. And if that's not enough, we're adding new content every month, keeping your culture tight, your team tighter, and your leadership skills on point. Oh, and let's not forget the 10% discount on all of our services forever. Spots are limited. So head to community.culturestoke.com community.culturestoke.com and get ready to build a culture people rave about. One more time, for those in the back, community.culturestoke.com.